My husband, Derek, was rushed to the hospital from his business trip. After receiving the call, I hurried to the hospital. However, I'm much better than an ugly wife like you, aren't I, Naomi? I witnessed an unbelievable sight there. My sister-in-law and husband were naked, hugging each other. Shock and revulsion surged within me. It's just unthinkable. They're siblings by blood, aren't they? I heard my sister-in-law's seductive voice and instinctively covered my ears. What was I, who had shed so many tears and anxiety when I received the call, worrying about my beloved husband might be gone? I want those tears back. No. That's not it, Naomi. Even if I got it back, I could never forgive them. They betrayed me. I absolutely cannot forgive them. I turned on my smartphone, which I was clutching so hard with anger that it was about to break, and called someone. Someone they wouldn't want to see the most. My name is Naomi. I am a 35-year-old working housewife. I've been married to Derek, who is 2 years older than me, for 5 years. Derek was a senior at the high school I attended. Though at that time, we barely knew each other. We found out that we both graduated from the same high school during our first date. Right before meeting Derek, I had just broken up with a long-term boyfriend. Thinking that I needed a fresh voice to forget my old love, I somewhat recklessly decided to attend a speed dating event. That's where I met Derek. At the time, Derek had also just broken up with his girlfriend, and we began to harbor affection for each other as we comforted each other. It seemed that Derek felt the same way, and we happily became a couple and later made a promise to go on a date together. It was on that date that we found out we had attended the same high school. The familiarity that came with this discovery led to a serious relationship with a view to the future. After several years of dating, we got married. I think Derek is a great man to live with as a spouse. He shares the housework and never forgets to make events like birthdays and Christmas enjoyable. Moreover, Derek works for a reputable company, so he hardly ever has overtime or work on weekends. Since we don't have children, he showers me with all his love. I am truly grateful to be married to him. However, while we were enjoying our married life, there was one thing that was bothering me a little. It was the relationship with my sister-in-law. She is 3 years older than Derek, married, and lives about 10 minutes away from us. It seems she had adored Derek since they were children, and when they were in elementary school, they were together all the time. Even in middle school and high school, her affection for Derek remained the same, and even as an adult, it continues. Derek will always be my beloved little brother. I'm the wicked woman who stole her dear brother from my sister-in-law. When I went to my husband's family home to announce our engagement, she told me that to my face. I don't expect to be best friends with my sister-in-law, but I do hope for a normal relationship with a family member. But it seems like a pipe dream. So, I try to avoid contact with her as much as possible. However, my sister-in-law seems to be indifferent to such considerations. If she feels like it, she would call me to nitpick and nag. Hello, Naomi? You still haven't quit your job? Stop thinking only about yourself and quickly become a full-time housewife to support Derek. I've told you this many times. Derek can take care of himself. He'll be fine even if I don't support him. Stop backtalking. And besides, I know better than anyone that Derek can handle things himself. Just because you're his wife doesn't mean you can look down on me. You're such an unpleasant woman. Whenever we talk, it's always like this, so I have no choice but to bear with her until she's satisfied. I've never told Derek about her behavior, but I have consulted with my mother-in-law, who lives close by. Unlike my antagonistic sister-in-law, my mother-in-law is very kind to me. We make arrangements to have tea together occasionally. After the consultation, my mother-in-law, although appalled by my sister-in-law's self-centered attitude, firmly warned her. Thanks to that, her sarcastic remarks have become less frequent since we got married. Anyway, I wish she would finally acknowledge Derek and me. One day, I had to work late for the first time in a while. Although I came home an hour later than usual, Derek was going to cook dinner, so I didn't need to stop by the supermarket and went straight home. I was tired and wanted to go to bed early. As I was thinking about this and leaving the local subway station, I made eye contact with a man. It was my sister-in-law's husband. I greeted him reflexively, and he returned the greeting with a smile. Our relationship was just seeing each other for a few hours on Thanksgiving and Christmas, but since we were going in the same direction, we ended up walking home together. Fortunately, my brother-in-law is a sociable type, so the journey home was not awkwardly silent. We made small talk as we walked down the dark street. After walking together for about 15 minutes from the subway station, he said, "Well, I'm going this way. Please be careful on your way home," and left with a wave. Despite his caution, my house was right in front of me. It seemed like he had accompanied me because he was worried about me walking alone at night. I hadn't interacted much with him before, but he turned out to be a nice guy. I watched my brother-in-law walk away before entering my house. The next day, Derek went to work while I had a day off, so I was relaxing in the living room with a cup of coffee. Then the doorbell rang, indicating a visitor. I put my half-finished coffee on the dining table and peered into the monitor for the intercom. There stood my sister-in-law. Maybe she had come to make another snide remark. Even though I was fed up, I headed to the front door. I could have ignored her, but it would have been more trouble if she found out that I was pretending not to be home. I hoped that she would leave soon if I just listened to her without responding. As soon as I opened the front door, my sister-in-law grabbed my shoulder and raised her voice. "You're having an affair with my husband, aren't you? You're truly despicable. And here you are, looking so innocent, but not giving us a moment's rest." For a moment, I couldn't understand what she was accusing me of. As I stood dumbfounded, my sister-in-law became even more incensed. "Why the surprised look? Stop playing innocent. I know that you were with my husband last night." Only then did I realize what she was talking about. She was referring to last night when I had run into her husband and we had come home together. Had she seen us? Or had her husband told her? Either way, there was no affair. It was a misunderstanding on her sister-in-law's part. When I told her this, she sniffed, said, "What a shameless woman you are. You'll see," and stormed off. She didn't seem convinced, but at least she left. I just hoped it wouldn't escalate any further. A few weeks later, Derek was scheduled to go on a business trip. Recently, Derek had been working a lot of overtime and often had to work on his days off. It was unusual because he normally didn't do much overtime or work on his days off, but apparently, he had been preparing for this business trip. "Well, I'm off. I'm counting on you to take care of the house while I'm gone. Don't miss me too much and cry, okay?" Derek said in a teasing tone and left. Well, I have to do my best at work too. I was just about to hit the busiest time, so I had 2 busy days ahead of me. And on the morning of the 3rd day after Derek had left for his business trip, while I was getting ready to go to work, my phone rang. The number displayed on my phone screen was unfamiliar. Who could it be this early in the morning? "Hello, who is this?" In response to my question, the person on the other end of the phone said they were from the city hospital. That didn't ring any bells. It seemed to be a hospital located about an hour away from my house, and I hadn't been to the hospital recently. I had no idea what they were talking about. Are you sure you have the right person? I don't mean to be rude, but I've never been to your hospital." Then this person said, "Naomi, right?" and called me by my name. "Derek has been in a traffic accident and was just rushed here. He's asleep now from the shock of the accident, so I'm contacting you on his behalf." Traffic accident, rushed to the hospital. Those words made my blood run cold. Is Derek all right? It seems there's no immediate danger to his life, but it would be best if he stays in the hospital for 2 or 3 days just to be safe. Could you come to the hospital so we can explain in detail? I replied, "I'll be there right away," confirmed the detailed address of the hospital, and hung up. Then I explained the situation to my workplace. My boss was very concerned and said they would treat it as paid leave for the time being. So I changed out of my work uniform into my regular clothes and decided to go to the hospital. On my way to the nearest station at a brisk pace, I realized something. The address of the hospital was in a completely different state from the one Derek had told me he was going on a business trip to. Was it a misunderstanding on my part, or had Derek simply misspoke? I was indeed curious, but no amount of thinking with my scrambled mind could provide an answer. All I could do was head for the hospital. About an hour later, I arrived at the hospital where Derek had been urgently transported. I confirmed Derek's room at the reception and rushed there. As I found the room labeled with Derek's name, I almost burst open the door, but then I thought he might be sleeping, so I gently opened it to avoid making a sound. The room was a double, with beds on both sides. The bed on the right seemed to be vacant at the moment. And around the bed on the left, a curtain was drawn, obscuring the view. Derek should be behind that curtain. When I entered the room, I heard a strange noise. It was not clear, but it sounded like a human voice. I also heard a creaking sound as if something was swaying. It seemed to be coming from the bed where Derek was supposed to be sleeping. For some reason, I had a bad premonition and slowly approached the bed. Then I gently peeked at the bed through the gap in the curtain. To my surprise, I saw a naked woman along with a naked Derek in the bed. Moreover, to my further surprise, the woman was my sister-in-law, Catherine. I'm better than a failure of a wife like Naomi, aren't I? At the moment Catherine's sugary voice entered my ears, feelings of shock and disgust bubbled up inside me. I covered my mouth and endured the nausea, then stumbled out of the room into the hallway. I sat down on a nearby bench and took several deep breaths to calm myself down. Then I tried to understand the situation in my own way. Derek had left home 3 days ago, saying he was going on a business trip. But that was a lie. He had pretended to go on a business trip and was probably meeting with Catherine. And then, for some reason, Derek had a traffic accident this morning. When the hospital called me, they didn't mention my sister-in-law, so it's reasonable to assume that Derek and my sister-in-law weren't together at the time of the accident. After that, Derek woke up while I was on my way to this hospital and got in touch with Catherine. He then called Catherine to his hospital room and committed adultery. These are all speculations, but they are not far off considering the circumstances. In any case, it is certain that Derek lied about going out and that the two of them are in a guilty relationship. I don't know when it started, but it's a serious betrayal. They might have been laughing at me for not noticing their affair. With that thought, anger surged up inside me. I impulsively went back to the room. I slowly entered the room so as not to be noticed by Derek and Catherine, and took away all the scattered clothes and underwear. Now they have no way to escape. Then I left the room again and called my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law responded immediately. "Hi. Could you come to the address I'm about to tell you? Derek has been urgently transported here." I didn't tell her that Derek and Catherine were having an affair. I thought it would be quicker for her to see it for herself than for me to explain. And then, about 2 hours of waiting. My pale-faced mother-in-law rushed to the hospital. Unaware that her own children were having an affair. My mother-in-law worried about Derek's health. It's not my fault, but I can't help feeling guilty somehow. While calming my mother-in-law down, I head towards the room where Derek and Catherine are. I see a crowd of patients, visitors, and nurses gathered there. Something must have happened. I push through the crowd in the hallway, leading my mother-in-law by the hand. Then, I hear a familiar voice. "Where have our clothes gone? Give them back." Looking in the direction of the voice, I see Catherine there, as I expected. She's barely covering her nudity with the bed sheets. Derek is in the same state. "I have no idea. More importantly, why are you naked? What on earth have you been doing here?" A nurse confronts the two, raising her voice. "Huh? What's happening? Derek was rushed here, and then..." My mother-in-law, a little behind me, mumbles this in confusion. The two, noticing our presence, widen their eyes in unison. "Derek and Catherine's clothes are with me. If you want them back, explain everything. Are the two of you having an affair?" I held up their clothes and underwear. Apparently not liking that, Catherine, without worrying about her sheet coming undone, steps up to me. "Don't you get cheeky, You're just a wife who came into our family. Yes, we love each other. You're the one who barged in afterwards." As Catherine shouts this, Derek, standing behind her, nods repeatedly. "Besides, wasn't Naomi also having an affair? I heard from Catherine that you were secretly meeting her husband." Derek said this with a triumphant look. Looking at Derek, all my love for him is completely gone. So, he trusts Catherine more than me. I don't have the slightest regret anymore. As I try to retort, my mother-in-law speaks up before me. "You too! I never thought you both could be so stupid. I'm done with you. You can't cross our doorstep ever again. Just go wherever you want together." A stern, low voice, unlike the usual kind mother-in-law, scolds the two. Whether overwhelmed by her anger or finally realizing the gravity of what they had done, Derek and Catherine lowered their heads and say nothing. I tossed their clothes and underwear at them. The sight of them scrambling to gather the clothes scattered on the floor is utterly ridiculous. "Derek, I didn't have an affair. Your sister just misunderstood. We can't continue as a married couple anymore. Prepare yourself once you're discharged. I'm going to make you pay a large amount in property settlement. And of course, I'm also going to make a claim against your sister, so be prepared for that." Upon my declaration, Derek and Catherine, still covered in sheets, drooped their shoulders. Some time after, I officially divorced Derek. After the incident, I left the hospital with my mother-in-law, leaving the two behind. Derek, who was supposed to be admitted, was severely scolded for causing a major disturbance in the hospital, and Catherine was apparently banned from entering. And as I declared, I demanded money from both Derek and his sister. Moreover, Catherine's husband, having learned of the situation, also filed for divorce and sued them. They're working day and night, drenched in sweat, to make the massive payments. After becoming single, Derek and Catherine seemed to have lived together for a while, but their life was hard, they fought constantly, and soon separated. Perhaps part of them was intoxicated by the situation of their affair. Without that, there's no point in being together, they might have thought. Afterwards, Derek tried several times to win me back. I had no intention of getting back together. The third time he tried to get back together, I told him that if he didn't leave me alone, I'd call the cops. Since then, he's stayed out of my sight. So now, I don't know what Derek is up to, but since he paid the settlement, he must be managing somehow somewhere. And as for Catherine, she seemed to be just scraping by with day labor jobs, but it looks like she hit her limit and finally started working in the night industry. Come to think of it, a few years back, Catherine used to say harsh things like, "Women who work at night are miserable." I wonder how she feels now, becoming that miserable woman herself. I hope she is reflecting on her actions. As for me, I made a fresh start and moved. Now, I live in an apartment close to my workplace. I still keep in touch with my mother-in-law every now and then. At first, she was terribly depressed, but recently, she seems to be gradually regaining her spirit, which relieves me. I plan to have a tea party at my house this coming Sunday. Being betrayed by someone I trusted, I thought it would be a while before I could get back on my feet. But thinking that this is the start of my second life, I can't afford to brood over it forever. I swore to myself to live positively to seize happiness.